The unbroken resolve. In the heart of New York City, in a towering glass building where the city's dreams seemed to reach as high as its skyline, lived a woman whose name echoed powerfully among the city's bustling streets, Evelyn Brooks. She wasn't a stranger to challenges, but this one was different. It was personal. Evelyn was a lawyer at the prestigious Manning and Green law firm, a place where ambition flowed through the halls like the very air they breathed. But not all ambitions were equally respected. For Evelyn, this wasn't just about legal strategy and courtroom tactics. It was about fighting for something far deeper, something she had been fighting for her whole life. Dignity, equality, and respect. Evelyn had always known that she had to work twice as hard as her colleagues. As a Black woman in a predominantly white law firm, the odds were stacked against her. The subtle and not-so-subtle challenges were a constant part of her professional existence. The dismissive glances, the patronizing comments, the underestimation of her intellect. But she had learned to navigate it, like a seasoned sailor in a storm, pretending the winds didn't bother her when they did. But that day, oh, that day, something inside her shifted. It began innocuously enough. Evelyn had just finished a round of meetings with clients, securing an important case for the firm. She was on her way back to her office, reviewing documents when she overheard a conversation in the break room. It was Jonathan Hayes, a senior manager known for his aloofness and his pointed, often insensitive comments, talking loudly to a group of junior partners. "You know, I don't get why we need someone like her here," Hayes was saying, his voice dripping with disdain. "She's just a diversity hire. It's just a box to check, you know? I've had to pull so many strings to make sure she doesn't mess things up." Evelyn paused, her heart pounding in her chest. The air around her suddenly thick with tension. The words hung in the air, almost suffocating her. A hot surge of anger coursed through her veins. But it wasn't just anger, it was something else. Something deeper, older. It was a feeling she'd buried for years. A feeling that said, enough is enough without a second thought. Evelyn walked into the break room. The room fell silent as she approached. Jonathan was holding a cup of coffee, his back turned to her. He didn't notice her at first, too absorbed in his self-righteous monologue. "Is that how you really feel, Jonathan?" Evelyn's voice was calm, but it carried a power that immediately caught his attention. He turned, his face draining of color as he realized who had spoken. "What are you talking about, Evelyn?" he stammered, trying to cover up the awkwardness. Evelyn's gaze was steady, unwavering, as she stepped closer to him. "You think I'm just a diversity hire, don't you?" The room had gone completely still. The junior partners exchanged nervous glances, unsure of how to react. Jonathan shifted uncomfortably. "Look, I didn't mean it like that." "I know," Evelyn interrupted, her voice sharp now, but composed. "You meant exactly what you said. And I've heard that kind of talk before, but today, I'm not letting it slide." The tension was palpable. Jonathan looked around the room, expecting support, but no one offered it. He faltered for a moment, as if unsure of what to do next. "I've worked harder than anyone in this room to earn my place," Evelyn continued, "and I don't need you or anyone else to tell me how I got here. You can keep your backhanded comments and your discriminatory beliefs to yourself. If you think I'm just some token to fulfill a quota, I'm going to make sure the whole firm knows the truth." Her words struck like a thunderclap. The junior partners, once eager to align themselves with Jonathan, suddenly seemed to shrink back. They knew what Evelyn had just said was dangerous, dangerous for their careers and dangerous for the firm's reputation. But they also knew that what she had said was undeniably true. Jonathan, for the first time, looked genuinely taken aback. He opened his mouth to protest, but Evelyn beat him to it. "I'll be filing a formal complaint against you, Jonathan. Not just for this, but for your pattern of behavior over the last few months. And I'll make sure this reaches the board." She turned, walking toward the door, but not before leaving him with one final line. "You won't get away with this. The next few weeks were a whirlwind." Evelyn filed her complaint with the Human Resources Department, and, as expected, Jonathan tried to fight back. He tried to spin the narrative in his favor, making it seem as though Evelyn was overreacting or misunderstood the situation. But the truth was undeniable. More colleagues, both black and non-black, came forward with testimonies about Jonathan's discriminatory behavior. It all came to a head in a tense, formal meeting. The firm's partners, HR representatives, and legal counsel gathered in the conference room, and Evelyn stood tall before them, unwavering. Jonathan sat across from her, sweating, his once cocky demeanor now replaced by the palpable unease of a man who realized he had crossed a line he could never uncross. The meeting was long, drawn out with endless back and forth. Jonathan denied the accusations, but Evelyn's evidence was irrefutable. Emails, witness statements, her own testimony, delivered with a calm strength that left no room for doubt. Slowly, the tide turned in her favor. The room, which had initially been filled with murmurs of uncertainty, now held a charged silence. No one could deny the facts. At the end of the session, the managing partner, a woman known for her sharp intelligence and even sharper sense of justice, looked at Jonathan Hayes and said, "Effective immediately. You are suspended from all managerial duties. Your behavior has been in direct violation of the firm's values, and your actions will have consequences." The firm's decision sent shockwaves through the industry. News outlets covered the story, praising Evelyn for standing up to discrimination in the workplace. The support poured in from all corners, but none was as important as the cheers from her colleagues. A few days later, when the firm held a meeting to address the situation, the room erupted in applause when Evelyn entered. Her colleagues, many of whom had been too afraid to speak out before, now stood with her no longer afraid. Evelyn's victory was not just her own. It was a victory for every person who had ever felt underestimated, overlooked, or dismissed. It was a triumph not just of justice, but of dignity. And in the months that followed, Evelyn's career at Manning & Green soared. She was promoted to a position of power, and with that power, she brought in sweeping changes to ensure that no one else would face the same treatment she had endured. In the end, Evelyn Brooks didn't just change her own life. She changed the culture of the firm, and in doing so, she sent a message that reverberated far beyond the walls of Manning & Green. No one should have to choose between their career and their dignity. And as for Jonathan Hayes, his reputation never fully recovered. The firm distanced itself from him, and his career, once so promising, slowly crumbled under the weight of his own ignorance and arrogance. But for Evelyn, every step she took after that day was a step toward something greater, a world where equality wasn't a fight, but a given. And with every challenge she faced, she remained unbroken, unwavering, and unapologetically herself. And